The message was clear: we are dying. Please help. Most civilizations would debate, delay, or deny. But Deathworlders, they didn't hesitate. They deployed an armada. If you're ready for a tale where humanity doesn't just respond, they arrive like thunder, then strap in. This is not your typical first contact story. This is HFY at its finest. In the vast galaxy, when a weak, dying species sends out an SOS, the expected reply is diplomacy, or silence. But not from Deathworlders. Not from humans. Built by the harshest conditions in the galaxy, forged in fire and conflict, humanity doesn't send thoughts and prayers. They send fleets. This story dives into what happens when the most dangerous species in the galaxy decides you're worth saving. The distress signal was weak, barely a whisper against the background noise of a galaxy teeming with countless voices. It came from a small, unremarkable planet on the edge of a dying star system, a forgotten world inhabited by a frail and peace-loving alien race known as the Krellian. Once proud explorers, the Krellians had fallen into decline after centuries of isolation, now ravaged by disease, famine, and a brutal invasion from a marauding species known simply as the Draxian Horde. Their last functioning satellite, clinging to orbit on dying power cells, pushed out a single, desperate message: we are dying. Please help us. The message reached the Galactic Council's central relay station, located in the heart of neutral space. There, it was logged, marked for review, and promptly buried beneath a mountain of bureaucratic hesitation. Delegates from advanced civilizations debated the ethical ramifications of intervention. Empires discussed the political consequences. Trade guilds weighed the economic value of Krellian minerals. No one moved. No one acted. They watched as the Krellians continued to perish, treating the extinction of a species as an administrative delay. But then, somehow, perhaps by fate, chance, or some half-forgotten routing algorithm, the signal bounced across a deep space relay and ended up in a place far removed from the corridors of diplomacy. It landed on the colony of New Terra, a human outpost built on one of the most hostile death worlds known to the stars, Tarsus 9. There, humanity had not only survived nature's wrath, they had thrived in it. The colonists of Tarsus 9 were descendants of soldiers, scientists, and settlers, people hardened by storms of acid rain, by apex predators the size of gunships, and by nights that froze metal solid. The moment the signal was decoded, there was no vote, no delay, no diplomatic pause. Within hours, hangars roared to life. Engines fired. Orders were shouted. Families packed care crates. Civilians volunteered. The response wasn't aid. It was action. Because to humans, an SOS was not a request for mercy. It was a summons to war. To understand the response, you must first understand who responded. In galactic classification, Earth, known officially as Sol 3, is listed as a Class 5 death world, a designation reserved for planets so hostile that most species wouldn't survive a single rotation on the surface. It's a world of shifting climates, violent tectonic activity, volatile fauna, and relentless evolutionary pressure. Where most species evolved in niches of stability, humanity evolved in chaos, forced to adapt, fight, and overcome every challenge their planet hurled at them. From ice ages to global pandemics, from apex predators to their own tribal warfare, humans not only survived, they dominated. The galaxy didn't notice them at first. When the greater civilizations mapped the stars, Earth was passed over as a curiosity, a cruel place with little strategic value and a species deemed too volatile to uplift. They were not wrong about the volatility. What they failed to see was what that volatility produced: innovation, resilience, fury, and above all, a kind of kindness sharpened by hardship. Humans are not kind in the way most species understand it. They do not offer help from a place of luxury or detachment. No, human kindness is aggressive. It's the kind that sends convoys through firestorms, the kind that charges into danger because someone has to. Their history is soaked in conflict, yes, but time and again they turned their bloodied hands toward rebuilding what was broken, sometimes even for those who once tried to break them. They do not forget pain, but they understand it, and that makes their compassion terrifyingly potent. Other species debate moral philosophy. Humans act on it. They are Deathworlders not just because they survived a hellish planet, but because they carry that planet inside them wherever they go. Every colony they build, every fleet they launch, every cry they answer carries the raw, untamed fury of Earth behind it. And when they received the Krellian SOS, the decision wasn't weighed, it was felt, because if there's one thing Deathworlders can't stand, it's watching the weak get crushed while the strong do nothing. The signal arrived at New Terra's Deep Space Relay Station at 0300 hours, Standard Time. A low-priority transmission, flagged as Ancient Code Distress, filtered through auto-sorting protocols until it reached a technician named Mara Singh, an off-duty comms officer sipping recycled coffee in a steel room that shook with every windstorm outside. She almost ignored it. The galaxy was full of ghost signals, but something in the desperation of the voice, a broken language pattern, half-choked with fear, made her pause. She decrypted the message, cleaned it up, and played it again. There was no mistaking it now. "Please, we are dying, help us." Within the hour, it was on the desk of Governor Reese Calder, former admiral and war hero. Within 2, it was being reviewed by Human Fleet Command and civilian council members in a closed emergency session deep within Fort Kestrel, the military hub of Tarsus. 9. The debate wasn't about if they would respond. It was how fast, unlike the cold bureaucracy of the Galactic Council, humanity's chain of command blurred when it came to crises. Soldiers, scientists, medics, miners, everyone had a role, and everyone was expected to act. Within 12 hours of the signal's arrival, the colony's emergency response systems were triggered. Freight haulers were converted into hospital ships. Drones were repurposed for recon and evacuation. Families donated food, tools, and even blood. Volunteers lined up not because they were told to, but because it was the human thing to do. And behind it all, the fleet began to awaken. Massive carriers, some still bearing battle scars from border conflicts, were fueled and loaded. Dropships were fitted with modular relief pods and combat support units. Orbital forges kicked into overdrive, producing spare parts and armor plating like it was wartime. Because to humanity, this was war, not against the Draxian invaders alone, but against the very idea that suffering should go unanswered. Governor Calder stood before the command dais and issued a statement broadcast across all human colonies. "We've received a distress call from a dying world. They asked for aid, but they won't get aid. They'll get us. Not relief, not supplies. They'll get intervention. And may the stars have mercy on anyone who stands in our way." The galaxy had seen human mercy. Now, it was about to see human wrath, delivered with open hands, iron resolve, and orbital fire. The skies above the Krellian homeworld darkened, not from storms, but from shadows. Shadows cast by a fleet that stretched across the upper atmosphere like a living wall. Hundreds of ships, all bearing the stark insignia of humanity, a broken world encircled by laurel and flame. The first to breach orbit was the HSC Vindicator, a dreadnought-class vessel designed not for diplomacy, but survival. Its escort carriers, medevac ships, mobile forges, and atmospheric gunships humming like hornets in tight formation. To the Krellians, it was as though the heavens themselves had cracked open and poured out titans. The transmission from humanity was short, direct, unmistakable. "This is the Terran Intervention Fleet. We have received your SOS. Stand by for immediate assistance." What followed was a perfectly synchronized descent. Dropships screamed through the stratosphere, flaring like meteors, and touched down with surgical precision. Within minutes, combat drones had deployed perimeter security. Within hours, mobile hospitals had unfolded from cargo bays. Medics in hardened suits moved through shattered villages, scanning for life signs and stabilizing the wounded. Engineers erected power pylons, water purifiers, and modular shelters in areas where nothing stood but ash and ruin. But not all ships carried tools. Some carried soldiers. When the first Draxian raiding party approached a refugee cluster, they found not frightened civilians, but a wall of armored Terran infantry waiting silently behind deployable cover. The Draxians charged, snarling, howling, convinced of their dominance. They didn't reach the halfway point. Terran response fire was precise, emotionless, and overwhelming. No speeches, no posturing, just action. When it was done, a single word was left in the air, spoken softly by a Krellian child who had never seen a human before: protectors. Across the planet, the reactions from surviving Krellians varied: fear, at the brutal efficiency of these strange newcomers; awe, at their speed and strength; and confusion, most of all, because they could not understand why a species so powerful, so terrifying, would come all this way to help a people who had nothing to offer in return. But humans didn't come for resources. They came because someone asked. And when the night came, and the stars above shone again, they shone through the silhouettes of Terran gunships circling overhead, of power grids glowing blue where darkness once ruled, and of hands, human hands, lifting alien children from rubble. The Deathworlders had arrived, not as conquerors, as guardians. The footage spread faster than any virus. Grainy, low-bandwidth recordings from Krellian survivors began appearing across galactic networks. Human warships blotting out the sky, medical units stitching up alien wounds with hands as steady as machines, Terran infantry holding back entire Draxian battalions without taking a single step back. It wasn't propaganda. It didn't have to be. The images spoke louder than any message. Humanity had answered a call no one else dared to hear. In the hallowed chambers of the Galactic Council, silence reigned. Representatives from ancient empires, some thousands of years old, watched the reports with barely concealed discomfort. The Karate Syndicate, known for its calculated neutrality, demanded emergency sessions. The Virelin Accord, long considered the moral compass of the galactic community, issued a statement calling the intervention unprecedented and alarming in scale. But beneath their words were two things they could not hide: fear and awe. For centuries, humans had been treated as wild cards. Barely a century into their spacefaring era, they had been underestimated, even mocked, too chaotic, too emotional, too unpredictable to ever play a major role in interstellar politics. Yet here they were, deploying one of the most coordinated multi-domain operations the galaxy had ever seen, without a single formal request, treaty, or debate. They had responded not as a government. They had responded as a species. Some powers panicked. The Varn Dominion began quietly reinforcing its border worlds. The Zithari Confederation commissioned intelligence reports on human fleet strength. There were whispers, paranoia creeping in like gas through cracks. What happens when the humans decide they don't like us? What happens if next time, they come not to save, but to judge? And yet, in the shadow of that fear, admiration bloomed. The Mechari, once victims of similar raids, issued an open declaration of thanks. Civilian networks across dozens of worlds lit up with praise. Youths across neutral zones began wearing Terran symbols as marks of rebellion and hope. A new phrase entered the galactic lexicon, whispered in both reverence and warning: if you cry for help, the humans will come. But if you're the reason for that cry, run. The galaxy had watched humanity survive its death world. Now, they watched it reshape what it meant to be powerful, not through conquest, but through conviction. Not with dominion, but with purpose. And in boardrooms, war rooms, and shadow councils, one silent truth echoed louder than anything else: the Deathworlders had drawn a line. And for the first time in generations, someone meant it. The war on the Krellian homeworld didn't end with a final battle. It ended with a beginning. As the last Draxian raider fell and the skies cleared of ash, humanity didn't pack up and leave. They stayed. They rebuilt. They dug graves for strangers and held funerals as if the dead were their own. Fields were replanted. Cities were replanned. Children who had never known peace began to play in streets guarded by human sentries and watched over by Terran medics. The message was no longer just broadcast on open frequencies. It was written into the soil. On the day the Krellian capital was restored to power, a single human envoy stood before a hastily assembled council of galactic observers. No banners, no anthems, just a simple statement that echoed across every comms relay from the core worlds to the fringe: we are not here for glory. We are not here for conquest. We are here because someone asked. That is all the reason we need you. Call, we come. It wasn't a policy. It was a precedent. From that day on, whenever distress signals were detected in unaligned or forgotten systems, humanity was the first to investigate. When pirates attacked border colonies, Terran vessels responded before the local authorities did. When natural disasters struck pre-FTL civilizations, it was humans who dropped supplies in stealth shuttles and vanished without demanding recognition. They called it intervention-based compassion, a doctrine that didn't wait for permission to do what was right. It bypassed red tape, ignored strategic value, and defied tradition. For many powers, it was terrifying. For the helpless, it was salvation. Not everyone welcomed it. Some saw it as interference. Some accused humanity of empire building through empathy. But the humans didn't argue. They didn't justify. They simply kept showing up again and again. And in time, that phrase, "You call, we come," was etched onto plaques, spoken in memorials, and painted on the sides of aged ships that bore no flags, only the quiet symbol of Earth, a broken world mended by flame. The galaxy had known many conquerors, but now, it had witnessed something new, a species willing to bear the weight of others' suffering, not because they had to but because they could. In the cold silence of space, cries for help often go unanswered, lost in the static, ignored by those with the power to act, but not by humanity. The galaxy learned that day that Deathworlders do not sit idle. They do not wait for permission. They do not measure worth by profit or power. When the weak call out, when the innocent suffer, when darkness falls without warning, humanity answers, not as saviors, not as conquerors, but as those who know what it means to endure the storm, and choose to stand between it and those who cannot. Because the message is simple, etched into hulls, spoken across stars, burned into memory. You call, we come, and the stars have never been the same. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred something deep, or made you think about what it truly means to answer a call, then don't let it fade into the void. Like the post to support this kind of storytelling. Comment with your thoughts. Would you trust the Deathworlders to come for you? Share it with someone who needs a little hope or a reminder that strength and compassion can walk hand in hand. And if you want more tales from the edge of space and the hearts of humanity, subscribe or follow for the next transmission. Because out here, in the vast dark, and if you ever call, we'll be listening.